Hey, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Simmons Says Tip Talks. This is going to be a new creative mini-series that I'm doing, and I'm going to do like 5-10 minute insights, little clips and insights into the creative process, predominantly as a writer. And I've been doing that for over 35 years. So I'm going to share some of my insights, some of the experiences I've had, some of the highs and lows, and try and be as honest and as clear and useful and valuable as I can be to everyone, because where you travel, I have, and where you're going, I've either been there or heading along the same path. So I thought, again, let me just try and share some things and be of some use, all right? So let me just get started here with, as this sort of is episode 1. Let me give you some idea of my background. Okay, so I was raised by a single mom. I tell that story every now and then when I'm talking at presentations or in the classes that I teach, and I've taught a lot of students over the years. But anyway, my mom was a very tolerant person. She had to be, because I was a bit of a wacko kid. I had a very wild imagination. I was always playing with action figures. I was always watching, we had a little black and white TV set. I was always watching not only the detective shows, the westerns, and the things like that were on TV, but also I would somehow, stay up late with my head tucked under the blanket peeking out when she would watch some of the old movies on the Late Show and things like that late at night. And sometimes it'd be foreign films, and I would watch those too. I was always taking in the material, always interested in the characters, always interested in the stories. And in particular, I was always interested in other places, other worlds, other cities, other countries, other lifestyles. And so that was my curiosity. And of course, filled with so much of that imagery and those experiences, when I played with my characters, when I made up my stories, that was an influence. So, again, I told you I played with my action figures and everything, but I was also in the comics. Yep, loved the comics. Initially it was DC. This was pre-Marvel. For a number of years I was into DC with Superman, Flash, and all that kind of stuff. And then along came Marvel. And Marvel Comics took the superheroes and put them closer to the real world. Spider-Man lived in Queens. I live in New York, so I got it. I know Queens. That was cool. The Fantastic Four were in Manhattan. The Baxter Building was downtown Manhattan. These were places I knew. Even though the building didn't exist, it didn't matter. It was familiar territory. Suddenly, the real world and the fantastic world were blending, and this just stimulated my imagination even more. And I had a couple of buddies, Angelo, and Michael. And we used to do, and especially in middle school, junior high school, we used to, play together. We used to hang out together. We used to watch some of the same shows, share comic books. And then we wound up with a friend of theirs that had an 8mm movie camera. This is all pre-cell phone and, all of the wonderful equipment you guys have access to now. So this person had this 8mm movie camera. And we decided we wanted to do our own movie. We wanted to do our own superhero movie, our own action film. And so we started making up stories, and it just sort of fell to me to write some of the dialogue or to come up with some of the plots. And so based on some old films that we had watched called like The Dead End Kids or the Bowery Boys, that sort of thing, we came up with our own thing called The Blind Alley Kids. And we made up these adventures, and we got to shoot them in our neighborhood and in a little bit in Central Park. And those were my first film, my first screenplays, if you will. And then from that, we sort of shifted into the superhero realm. And so Michael and Angel put on costumes, and they made them. And so they had the Batman and Robin costumes. So again, we're making up these stories, and we're having these fantastic characters, and we're shooting all over the streets and in the park and everything. And again, characterization and stories and good versus evil and all of those things were intertwined with our day-to-day life, our real life of growing up in, let's just say, the not upper class region of the city, but still happy and having a good time as kids. And so from that, I sort of developed this hunger to create, either to create characters on my feet, a la acting, or to write stories. And that's what I did for the longest time. So by the time I turned 18, I got an opportunity to do some articles, and to interview musicians and things like that, and write articles for some of these sort of fanzines and magazines that were going on at that time. And then by the time I was like 19 or 20, I met this young lady. She was something else. She was just very special, and I was inspired to write my first romance story, if you will. But it had to be fantastic. I mean, in other words, it had to be a fantasy realm sort of thing. So it involved elves and magical worlds and all this kind of thing. It was called Tosh and Vi. But once again, taking characters, taking some portions of real life, looking to myself and my own feelings as well as the reactions, feelings, and experiences of people that I knew, and creating this other world and expressing maybe revealing more of how I felt, because no, I didn't tell her, expressing more of how I felt through this storytelling. And it just sort of, moved on through the years where I wrote plays. I wrote a Sherlock Holmes play that was produced off Broadway and was published with a Amiri Baraka and August Wilson collection and some other things. So I was very thrilled about that. And eventually I even created African